And I am Dr. Corey Howard. I'm going to be talking to you tonight about the medical crisis in America, and we do have a medical crisis. So let me give you some information, a little bit of background on myself to begin with. First of all, I'll make this a little bit smaller in the background here. All right. So I am a physician. I've been in practice for the past 17 years. I'm a board certified in gastroenterology and general internal medicine, as well as doing some other extracurricular activities such as an Ironman triathlon. And now I only tell you that because that just defines some of the things that I've done. It doesn't really tell you who I am. And hopefully during this next 30 minutes or so, I'll give you a little bit more information that'll show you how I've been able to blend something into my career that has made an absolute huge difference. But let's just jump right into this right now. So what we're going to talk about are some of the problems. We're going to talk about problems for patients and problems for healthcare professionals, some of the solutions, both nutritionally and from a weight management standpoint. I am going to go through some science. I promise I won't test you. Well, maybe I'll test you just a little bit. And I'm going to show you a business model that will literally just blow you away and show you a way that you can help your patients by adding value to their care and significant revenue to your practice. All right. So what are some of the challenges that are facing physicians today? Now, some of you out there may know this, and if you're a doctor, you definitely know this, but I can tell you that payment is certainly one of the problems. But government mandates, time, technology costs, staffing, training, lack of control, big deal, right? And then this little thing right here that they call work-life balance. Now, let me tell you something. It really shouldn't be called work-life balance. It should be called work-life integration. And I say work-life integration because you should love what you do. And as a physician, let me tell you something. I was not loving what I was doing. I was getting hammered every single day by insurance companies, by patients wanting a medication for the next year when I knew that they were diabetic and I had to do something, and my life was not what I wanted. And luckily, I stumbled upon something that allowed me to integrate my work and my life so that I could actually build my work around my life and not just the other way around. Okay? So now, let's look at the reality of payment for physicians. Now, these are the compensations in 2012, and I guarantee you they're no better in 2013. And this is the number of hours spent per week. It's about 50 hours or so. But here's the deal. When you look at this and a general internist making $186,000 net, you're like, man, that's not so bad, right? I mean, I like to be making $186,000. You know what that turns out to be? $70, $77 an hour. That's right, $77 an hour. I took my car in, it was $105. I had the plumber come to my house, it was $85. And then he charged another $25 so the guy could go down to his truck, pull the tools, and bring them up in my house. All right, so I'm pretty sure they don't have the same exact qualifications that I had after going through 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency, and 2 years of subspecialty training as a gastroenterologist before getting paid the first time, right? So that doesn't sound so good. If you're an orthopedic surgeon, $168 an hour. So I'm thinking, man, there's got to be something else out there. So, but let's look at some of these other things because e-health is going to be taking over. Now, e-health is called telemedicine. Right now, the payments are very, very low for that, but it's going to explode soon. That is the next frontier in medicine. Retail clinics, heck yeah. You know what's going to happen? They're going to stick a nurse in all these clinics and all these pharmacies. Why? Because they write the pharmaceutical drugs and they make some money. And they could charge lower fees. And while you're there, you can go shopping at Walmart or whatever it is. Physician visits and urgent cares will be about the same, but emergency room care is going to be crazy expensive. So the other thing now, these crazy, insane government mandates. I am literally tonight in the middle of a fight with Congress through some of the positions I have on trying to figure out the right language of what they could be doing. And I can tell you that it's really not looking too good. we're gonna take some major cuts. Things are not going to happen that are going to be in a positive direction. It's just going to be painful to be a practicing physician unless you're in some kind of big group. But there's got this crazy thing called ICD-10, which is increasing the number of codes by like 10,000, so that you could know that you had bitten on the right side of your right first digit in Tanzania on a Tuesday, and it was 12:30 p.m. by a lion that was whatever. I mean, it's just ridiculous kind of detail. Now they've increased HIPAA, which is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, for documentation purposes, nightmare, and something little thing called PQRS, which is the Physician Quality Reporting System, which you're just going to get hosed a different way because you're going to take another hit, a penalty, if you don't follow all the little check marks that they tell you to do. Luckily, one of those little check marks is for antioxidant containing supplementation. Pretty cool. We're going to use that to our advantage in a couple of minutes. All right. So HIPAA is a nightmare, which has these huge fines if you mess up, which you can see here up to $50,000. That's not looking too good, right? And technology. Yes, doctor, you need a computer system. In fact, everybody does. And you need to have an electronic health record system that needs to be fully integrated with blah, 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 costing another $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. And some of you guys out there may say, well, that's just the cost of doing business. But I'm telling you right now, that's not the case. It's not even a good system. It's not even a proven methodology. It's pretty good, but we still need a lot of work, and it's very expensive. But here's the bottom line, right? When you look at what the realities are, time and freedom, you have none. And that's where I was. I was looking at no time and no freedom, and I was making money, and then I was making hardly any money because it was so difficult to churn that many patients that they want you to do in a practice setting. And I don't know if that's how you feel, but I know that that's how a lot of doctors feel. And so what happens is they stop looking inside, they stop doing personal development, personal growth, they stop learning how to communicate better, and they just go on autopilot to the point where they just say, oh my gosh, Calgon, take me home, right? And they get employed by a hospital. And what happens then is that when you ask a doctor who is employed, doctor, what's the number one problem that you find when you're employed? You know what they say? They say, I'm employed. So what can we do to help the patient and help the physician move forward? Well, this was just recently looked at in a article in Medscape in December. And this was ways for doctors to make more money. And let's go to the videotape here because we could teach students, not so bad. Provide care to prisoners. That's, I went to medical school, so that could be my primary occupation, providing cares for prisoners. Serve as an expert witness. Maybe not my thing. Here's a cool one. Supervise PAs and nurse practitioners. Now, that doesn't sound so bad. It's not what you're thinking. They're saying that they're going to have the nurse practitioners and PAs hire you to sign their charts. You're thinking the same thing, aren't you? That's crazy. All right. Reviewing health insurance claims. Go to work for a pharmaceutical company. Sure, I went to medical school to work for a pharmaceutical company. Staff medical tents at and runs and other events. Doesn't pay well, but that's a little work-life integration. Here's my favorite. Work on a cruise ship. I mean, really. These are the ways that they're talking about doctors to make more money. All right. So I have the ultimate solution on how a doctor can make more money. Are you ready for this? All right, here we go. Take better care of your patient's needs. That's right. Find out what your patients want or need and fill in that gap. And where I found the biggest gap was in nutrition because I myself was obese. That's right. I was almost 50 pounds heavier when I was 10 years into my gastroenterology solo practice, and I was in Utah, and I couldn't bike with my wife. And I said I had it. And a couple of months later, a friend of mine said, hey, have you ever heard of triathlon? I'm like, no, what's that? He says, well, you got to swim, and you got to bike, and you got to run. I'm like, oh my God, you kidding? First of all, I grew up in Manhattan. I never really learned how to swim, maybe not to drown. And number two is I didn't own a bicycle. And number three is I couldn't run 1 mile. So I figured, "Hey, what the hell? I'll go do that, right?" Well, I caught that bug and I wound up becoming a competitive Ironman triathlete, which is a 2.4 mile open water swim, 112-mile bike ride, and a full marathon. And I never in my dreams would have thought I can do it. And you do something like that and you realize you could do anything. But what I learned along that journey is a lot about nutrition and a lot about what's going on. So when we combine the medical crisis we have and nutrition, what do we see? Bingo! You could go to Walgreens because they're open till midnight and you can get your pneumonia shot. And while you're there, you could buy liquor. Okay? Because then you can go on and bring your pets too because they can have their shots there. That's where I want to get my medical care. Now, how about weight management? Let's go into any store and see what they have on their shelves. Oh, let me see here. 5-hour energy. Boost. Great weight management tool. What else do we have? Evolve and garbage. This is what's happening, and it's a disaster. So when you ask this question, who should know about nutrition? It's us. That's the sweet spot right now. We've got to do a better job with that. In fact, if you look at weight management, 65% of people worldwide are not happy with how they look. 77% of people, and I'll move this out of the way, are trying to actively manage their weight at any time, at any one given time. So these are significant statistics. Now, if we look at weight and nutrition management, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we can help our patients and add value. Because you know what? Right now, it's time for doctors to take their heads out of the sand. This is the ostrich. It's like so much stuff happening, right? They stick their head in the sand and they figure, you know what, it's all going to go away, but it's not. So that's where we step in. That's where we have to provide a level of service. That's where we have to differentiate ourselves or die. And that's where I'm at, right? So when I'm training to be an Ironman triathlete, I'm taking supplements and I'm taking stuff and I have no idea what I'm doing at the time. And the question really becomes, people ask me this all the time. What supplements do you take? And how do you know if they're working? How do you know, right? So I said, well, I don't know. Do people even take supplements? Well, here's some interesting statistics. 68%, this is according to the Council on Responsible Nutrition, just published a couple of days ago. And what this shows you is that 68% of all US adults take a dietary supplement. Big number. How about this? 75% of people over 55 take a supplement. That's a big number, especially with the population getting older. Women more than men. If you make more money, you tend to do it. And if you're educated, you tend to do it. So are you getting my drift? Little target market here? Okay. How about doctors? Do doctors take supplements? This was just published 3 days ago. Which physicians take supplements? Well, guess what? 60% of women physicians and 55% of men physicians actually take a supplement. But has your doctor or doctor, have you ever talked to your patient specifically about supplements? And what did you say? Right? All right, let's take a look here. How about what are you taking? 77% of them are taking a multivitamin. Why? And because, I don't know, somebody told me. And how do they know if it's working? Faith. Must be some faith. Because that's the only way you would know. And there's a whole bunch of other things that people are taking that you can see here. But let's see why you're taking the supplements. Men and women, about the same, pretty much for health reasons. You know, overall well-being. Fill in nutritional gaps in your diet. That's pretty important because I believe that the world is completely filled with micronutrient, what's called insufficiency, not deficiency, but insufficiency. And some of them want to do some other things like heart health and things like that. Okay. So here was a fascinating thing that I found out though, because who the supplement users trust the most are the doctors. 55% said they trust the doctor the most. 34% pharmacists and only 30% the actual nutritionists. And who is leveraging that? Nobody. Okay? We need to do a better job. People are asking, they have a want and a need. Why aren't we filling in that gap? Because we're too busy doing disease management. We're too busy out there just doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, expecting that people are going to get healthy, and it's not happening. Okay, so here's some cool points about supplements because it's also a behavior modification tool. If you take a supplement, what the data shows is that they tend to eat a little bit better. 87% eat better than 78% for people who don't. They tend not to smoke. They tend to visit their doctors a little bit more regularly. And they tend to exercise a little bit more. Those are all healthy behaviors. So that just by taking the supplement alone, they will do these behaviors. So when I first started in my training, I was doing this. This is actually a picture after I got LifePak Nano and I started using it of the junk that was in my cabinet, and I threw it all in a bowl and I took a picture of it just to remind myself how insane it was to be taking crazy stuff that I didn't know what it was and what the quality was. So I was desperately trying to find something. Luckily, somebody called me up and said, "Hey, Corey, you're into nutrition, aren't you?" "Yes." "Have you ever heard of the biophotonic scanner?" I was like, "No." "Let me introduce you to Pharmanex." I was like, "Cool. Let me see. Show me." And this blew me away. What I learned when I went out to the company almost right away is that it was unbelievable. Now, this is a picture from this summer of the new building, the new Anti-Aging Innovation Center that they paid about $110 million for. But I was absolutely floored by everything, every aspect about it. But here's what I learned. So I went there and I said, well, let me learn a little bit about this company, Pharmanex. And it was founded by three guys, Michael Cheng, Joseph Cheng, not related, and Carl Gerasi. Now, what's the important point about that? Because these guys were in big pharma. They were saying, you know what? Pharmaceutical drugs cause a lot of side effects, but the natural compounds don't have as many side effects, and they tend actually to be more efficacious or more effective, right? So Michael Cheng created Mevacor. Joseph Cheng created something called Rapamune for anti-rejection drug. Carl Gerasi is the father of the modern day birth control pill, which, by the way, was from Mexican yams. If you can believe that, it's like a little party information, okay? So these guys got together and they said, let's do it differently. And they started their own business, their own company, and it was going like gangbusters. It was great because they finally developed a pharmaceutical grade nutraceutical. Now, they use something called the 6S process. Now, unless you're in the pharmaceutical industry, you probably haven't heard any nutraceutical companies doing this because they select the best nutrient, the best sources. They find out what's in it. They know the chemical structures of every compound in before they put it together, and they standardize it for consistency, efficacy, and quality. And the reason why I mention that is because this is a brand that you can trust, a brand that you can prove. All right, let's digress for just a second. If you're a wine drinker out there, you probably know that one year, like 1997, was a great year for cabs in California, but 1999, maybe not so good. And maybe we just take that on face value. And where am I going with that? Well, where I'm going is that the environment changes the genetic makeup of the grape and what it expresses. And so what's in that grape from year to year actually will change components. And the same thing is true of plants that are exposed to the environment. And so other companies, all they do is they grow the plant, they cut it down, they stick it in a bottle, and they sell it. Like, hey, here's 100 milligrams of X. What we do is we standardize that process. So when there's good years and bad years, we know exactly the amount that's supposed to be in there. And that is extremely vital in our business. They do extensive safety studies and they substantiate their claims with clinical trials, which are also not FDA mandated. But if they were, we'd be right there. So big deal. All right. So there's a big diverse team of every type of science that you can imagine. The group is located, has a couple of research and development centers, which are very important because we got a lot of things in the pipeline. Provo, Utah, Beijing, China, Shanghai, China, as well today in Wisconsin. They have 75 full-time employed scientists, 30 of which hold a PhD. That's a good thing to know. But here's another thing that's absolutely amazing is that their research affiliates are everywhere. It's not just our little lab. It's all kinds of labs working together to make better products, to find out if they work, and to substantiate the claims. Okay, amazing stuff now is that they've moved into the area of what's called epigenetics or nutrigenomics. And that's where nutrients affect the expression of your DNA. So what nutrients are in the soil actually allow your genes to express themselves differently. And LifeGen Technologies is the company that did the largest primate research for calorie restriction, over 30 years of data. We bought that company. They have hundreds of articles, and we have been able to develop quality products based on this science. When we partnered with them initially and then bought them and locked everybody else out of that market, that is an exclusive scientific partnership you won't find anywhere else. And when I found that out, I was like, sign me up. I want that stuff for my patients. Okay. Well, then I kind of looked at the company because I really wanted to know a little bit more about it because I heard some companies sometimes come and go. This company's been around for 30 years. They operate in 53 countries and it's expanding all the time. They have a big research and development budget and they've been spending money so that they can create quality products. They're on the stock exchange, Forbes top 100, in fact, top 5. And they've won a couple of awards called the Stevie's Award. Now, you may not know what that is, so let me just tell you. It's the most innovative company in the United States. I'll give you an example who else wins that award. Apple for the iPad. We won it as well for our biophotonic scanner and then again for our age-lock technology. Is that great? In fact, we're so innovative that the Motley Fool listed us as the Apple of the anti-aging industry. Wow, that's just amazing, amazing stuff. And if that wasn't big enough, bam, in comes the biophotonic scanner. This is a tool that is a disruptive technology, people. If you know what that is something that alters the landscape in which it operates. It will change the nutritional world forever. And we have the global exclusive rights and the medical rights to this technology. This happens to be Dr. Lester Packer. He's the father of antioxidants, wrote the Antioxidant Miracle. And when he got this in his hand, he said, this validates my life's work. Does that send a chill down your spine? I mean, it should, because this is real science. This is a real scientist. And so it's amazing stuff. You know, if you look at some other companies, and we'll get into that, they don't do this kind of thing. But why was this invented? And this is what fascinated me, because age-related macular degeneration is the most common cause of blindness in the United States, 2 million people a year. So we're just trying to find out, what can we do to make people better? How can we do that? And these guys at the Center for Biomedical Optics at the University of Utah, Huntsman Cancer Institute, actually studied this stuff. And these guys found that they could use a technique called Raman spectroscopy. Now, this is cool stuff. This was a Nobel Prize winning technology from the 1930s that was shelved for a long time. And what's great about it is that it's about this little double bond right here called a covalent double bond. And it's so simple. A blue light shines on it, and for some reason, it changes its conformation and bounces back as the color green. And you can measure that. So these guys were doing that in the eye because the macula has 1,000 times more concentration of carotenoids than almost anywhere else in the body. Because just imagine, the sun is coming in, free radicals are being generated. You got to have something to mop that stuff up or you'll go blind right away. Yeah. So they developed this argon plasma laser, right into the eye. Yeah, go get a lot of people to try to do that test. But they found out that they also could measure it in the skin just as accurately. In fact, specifically the stratum corneum of the skin, where carotenoids tend to concentrate, it gives you like a hemoglobin A1C or a 6-week measurement of carotenoids. Great stuff. I'm going to get a little bit more into carotenoids in a few minutes, so hang on to any questions there. All right, so they did some studies and correlated skin carotenoids and serum carotenoid levels, and they found that they were very similar, so it's validated that. Okay, so now they took the scanner which was this thing that you see right here in 1999, this big menagerie of equipment, and they shrunk it down. Wow, that looks a lot smaller to me. All right. Then they shrunk it down again. The first one that did it in the skin in 2002. Then the first biophotonic scanner in 2003, which many of you know didn't really work that well. It weighed like, I don't know, 11 pounds or 17 pounds, or had a big, massive footprint and wasn't great. And then they developed this version, the Everest version, which worked fabulously. Now they have done one better, and they now currently have this cool device. I luckily have one of these. This is an amazing tool. It is small, weighs less than 2 pounds. It reads it in 30 seconds. Mini iPad. The technology is cool. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's portable, battery operated, no wires. I love this thing. I could bring it anywhere. All right. So what about validation for us scientists out there? Well, this was validated and put into peer-reviewed journals. This one happens to be Current Topics of Nutraceutical Research, which I'm sure each and every one of you have on your coffee table at home. But they talked about the nutritional significance and measurement of carotenoids, and they just basically went through the data and proved it. And it's been substantiated several times since then. But let's take a look at what it means, because it's directly related to fruit and vegetable intake. We talk about RDI, which is the recommended daily intake of fruits and vegetables. And the number's like 5 to 7, 5 to 9. But really, for optimal nutrition, you don't have to eat like 15 servings of a variety of vegetables. Well, the scanner directly correlates to how many vegetables you consume. And that's a nice linear curve. If it relates to body mass index, so that the heavier you are, the more body fat you have, the lower your score is. And the reason why that is because carotenoids actually go into the body fat. And just think about this. Did you know that cancer was recently linked to obesity? In fact, 12 different cancers are linked to obesity. And why? Because obesity is an inflammatory condition, and it just sucks out all your antioxidants into the body, and they're not available for the rest of your organs to use, and then you get into a bad situation. Okay. How about smoking? Well, smoking crushes these numbers. You get so many free radicals, and it's just bad stuff in smoke. But we also are able to do some measurements. And in this case, we're looking at urinary testing of metabolites of free radicals and antioxidants. And what you find is that the higher your score, you can actually measure it in the urine as well. So you'll get a really low amount of free radicals in the urine because it's all being sopped up by the antioxidants that you have. That's another validating test. It's really pretty cool stuff. So let's look at what I'm going to call the health equation. All right. And now the health equation is not, the absence of disease. That's what we were taught in Robin's textbook of pathology when we started medical school. Really, here's my definition of health. The equation is proper nutrition plus exercise plus proper supplementation. That's what equals health. Okay, so let's digress for just a second, give you a little bit of science on antioxidants, free radicals, because your health depends on the balance between these two. A poor diet means a lot of free radical damage and a lot of inflammation. It's going to lead to a lot of diseases, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, so on and so forth. Okay, what about the sources of free radicals? Well, the main one is metabolism inside of your mitochondria. What is your mitochondria, you might ask? It's a good question. Well, inside of your cells, you have a powerhouse that creates energy. It is the energy producing substance, organelle in your cells. And the more you have, the more energy that you can produce. Now, those decrease over time, and I'm going to show you some products that can work on that as well. But what happens is a byproduct of the metabolism and the creation of energy is a free radical. Now, free radical, I want you to think of like a battery inside of your body just kind of buzzing and burning things, and that causes a lot of damage. Poor dietary habits, sun exposure, exercise actually increases free radicals. And that's why athletes need even more antioxidants in their diets. Smoking, obviously, pollution, all bad stuff, and of course, obesity. Those are all things that lead to increased free radicals. And here's something that some of you may have heard. The amount of antioxidants that you maintain in your body is directly proportional to how long you will live. That is Richard Cutler, Director of Anti-Aging Research at the National Institute of Health. The amount of antioxidants that you maintain, how would you know how much you maintain unless you can measure it, is directly proportional to how long you will live. Pretty powerful stuff if you ask me. So let's look at these antioxidants. So carotenoids are pretty cool because they have these double bonds. But what's even cooler, what's even more amazing than that is this, which is the cell. So this is the cell, and this is your DNA right here. And your cell is like the barrier to the damage that can occur to your DNA. So if you have some vitamin E, it sits in the cell wall. Vitamin C goes through these things. They're called gap junctions. And bam, these carotenoids are doing the rest of the job and blocking any of these things from getting through the cell and damaging your DNA. Now that is an amazing thing occurring in every cell. Well, wouldn't it be valuable to you to know if you could measure what is inside of this lipid layer of the cell? I think it would. That's what the biophotonic scanner is measuring. So why would we be measuring it is the question. And it's a simple question because the carotenoids are the foot soldiers in your antioxidant network. And so what happens, and this happens to be for you doctors out there, an NADPH electron transfer system that allows the electrons to go around to whichever one needs it. So a free radical steals an electron from one of these guys, and it just borrows the rest from some other places. But what we found is that as carotenoids go down, all of the antioxidants begin to go down. And there are hundreds of them that we know of, and probably hundreds even more that we don't know. And so it all has to do with this bioavailability and the line of defense. And it is the first line of defense in this entire system. And this is just another depiction of that. I think that's fascinating. All right. Now, I won't bore you with too many articles, so I put a couple on a page here so you can see, serum antioxidants associated with something called metabolic syndrome, which is kind of precursor to a lot of diseases, antioxidants and long-term dementia, fruit and vegetable intake in 41,000 people found that fresh root vegetables have decreased mortality, circulating carotenoids and the risk of breast cancer, a comprehensive study showing that women with the highest levels of circulating carotenoids have a reduced breast cancer risk. Also, total plasma carotenoids and mortality as well in the aging study. So if you were a male in the lowest quintile, the range of carotenoids, what happened was that you had almost a 3 times higher risk of all-cause mortality. And that's just a small smattering of the thousands and thousands of articles that you can find out there. Okay, but here is a concept that I want to throw at you, and it's called micronutrient triage. And what it's all about is conceptually, it's about if you're a pregnant woman and you're not taking calcium in your diet, where is your baby going to get the calcium from? It's going to steal it from your bones. Okay, that's what's going to happen. Well, the same thing is true in the rest of your body. And so what happens is when you have a lot of micronutrient insufficiencies, and these are very scarce, the body actually has to make a decision. What's more important, your brain or the hair on your head? I mean, it has to make a decision where to put the nutrients. And so it makes those decisions by itself. So in the absence of you giving it what it needs, it'll figure it out, and something will suffer along the way. And what usually it is chronic disease, because 70% of the population has a chronic disease for the last 20 years of their lives. All right, let me show you something, one more little thing that's fascinating, if that's okay. All right, so this is the cell membrane. The cell membrane here, like I showed you, when you eat a carrot, there's something called chimeric forms. These are different formulations of the carotenoids that are in there. And what happens is that it will cause the body to send a message to the nucleus to then increase the body's mechanism inside of the intracellularly to clean up debris. So it has a genetic response when you eat it. That's another example of nutrigenomics. Now, how about the same thing with lycopene or tomato? In this instance, The tomato lycopene increases the number of what's called gap junctions, okay, these little blue things, and that allows for increased cell-to-cell communication so that they can all be on the same page. It's like us all working together, okay? Same kind of thing. All right, let's move on to weight management for a second. I'll show you a couple things here. All right, first of all, let's take a look at what they're eating in Egypt, all right? And in Egypt, you can see here, there's a lot of vegetables and stuff like that, right? Tons and tons of vegetables, and it doesn't cost them that much in Egypt. Lucky them, right? Let's move over to Germany. Well, apparently the Germans like to drink a lot of beer, a lot of milk, a lot of other things, a lot of liquids. I really don't know why. But you can see that the number of vegetables is dramatically decreased, okay? And that's excluding the plants in the background. So they got some more meats, which you didn't see so much in Egypt, tons of drinks, including beers, some vegetables, and then some other kind of garbage. All right. How about in America? Well, this is what most Americans are doing. They're eating processed foods, very little vegetables. It's costing them money. It's costing them their health. It's costing them their lives. And what are we doing? We're just taking care of their diseases. I mean, is that crazy? You know, is that the definition of insanity? I think so. All right. So I showed you this before. You know, 65% of people are unhappy with their body shape. 77% of people are trying to manage their weight because 2/3 of the populations are overweight or obese. Disaster. It's getting worse. It's terrible. 20 years gone by and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. We're going to be so bad that we won't know what to do with ourselves. And that's where we introduce a system that works, that looks at a product with a great brand behind it, an eating plan, an exercise plan, in addition to the supplements I showed you. Because when you go and you measure yourself on your scale, that thing doesn't work. It doesn't show you the real deal. These are two people, same weight. One has way more muscle. And so what happens with all the regular diets out there? You lose fat and you lose muscle. You lose your metabolism, where your metabolism is inside of your muscles. Our system is going to increase the muscle and decrease the body fat through our epigenetic program. First in the world. Now that's something that you can stand behind. Now, when you look at this, you find, when you look in the literature, you find that a ton of articles out there on weight loss, and what happens is the traditional diets just cause a lot of muscle loss. And this is all substantiated in the literature. Now, in addition to that, we found that, and this was published at Harvard, adequate protein can actually help you maintain body shape. So when you maintain your protein, what you can do is actually improve your metabolism and not lose so much body mass in the terms of the muscle. It gives you a better chance at keeping things off. So we did that. And our protein is incredible. It's just a great, clean protein. And when you use the program, you get these kinds of results. Participants lost 15 to 25% body fat. And you think, oh, well, that sounds pretty good. Hey, listen, the best programs out there, whether you're talking about Weight Watchers or other things like that, they're losing like 5 pounds a year, maybe, if they could keep it off. Maybe a little bit more for some people, but on average, it's not as great as you think. This program in 90 days changes people's lives. It puts them in the right direction. It helps to show them the right way to go. It's a behavioral modification tool. It's not touted like that, but I find it to be a behavioral modification tool. And it is a great program. And the other thing is that the company is still studying it. They didn't stop there. Nobody told them to do that. So they're going to continue on and do more research and find out more information so that we can help our patients better and that we can live the lives that we want to live. And this product, AgeLock TR90, is going to be available in April for a day, and then it'll be off the market again. And so if you know anybody that wants that, if you want to get involved with that, you want to jump on board with that, you want to talk to the person that put you on this call immediately and get your hands on some of that. But let's talk about money. I like talking about money, all right, because there's these two centers. There's a scanner program and there's weight management. And so I want to just briefly show this to you. But here's what I see. I see this kind of thing. A patient calls you and makes an appointment. They come to your office. They see the nurse, they see the doctor, they see the nurse to order tests, and they check out. 6 different contacts along the way. And what do you get for that? Well, if you're a general internist, you're going to get $38 net, right? It showed you $77 an hour. So if you saw that person 4 times in a year, meaning 24 different contacts throughout the year, you're going to net $152. Okay? Doctors don't think like that typically, but that's what you're going to see. Now, what happens if we introduce the biophotonic scanner and we scan a patient in 30 seconds? And then maybe we have somebody in our office that discusses it and the doctor validates, and we start them on a nutritional program that helps their lives, that adds incredible value to them. What do we get? You add $300 a year per person. Compare that to $38 you got for that visit, right? Think about that. This is a no-brainer. There's no reason not to integrate something like this into the business. Now, how about how much does it cost? Well, it's very simple. $3,250 to start it up. You get a lot of different products as well as scan cards, which cost you about $1, but you charge $20, and you can get started. There is a monthly maintenance program with it, a lease, so to speak. But if you put 5 people a month on the program, it's waived. It doesn't cost you a dime. So what else would you want? So let's look at the 2 sources of revenue here. The first one is just scanning people, right? So if you scan people, 5 patients a day in a busy 25-person a day practice, at $25, you're going to make $25,000. Even if you had to pay for the lease, you'd still make more than $20,000 a profit for a 30-second test. 10 patients a day, $50,000. You can do the numbers. The math is easy. How about this? How about residuals from that? Now, here is where the rubber meets the road, because you're going to get $300 a patient per year. It's not some keystone markup where there's a doubling of the price. It's a fair price for the patient. You're educating them. You're putting them on it. So if you have a practice of 3,000 to 6,000 patients, maybe 2,000 are unique and these are multiple visits, you could easily put 100 patients a year on the program. You could easily put 300 patients a year on the program, just barely scratching the surface. Remember, I told you 68% of your patients are already taking a supplement. So you should be able to put more than 2,000 people on the program. We're talking 300, and that's $90,000. Okay, and we could show pro forma and do some other stuff, but I want to keep this just to the last thing. So weight management. This is some information I put together. Our products cost about $365 to $400 a month. I suggest a program be developed where patients charged $100 a month. This is just something I'm putting out there. That gives each patient to the doctor $520 for a 3-month program per patient that's enrolled in the program, and there's a minimal amount of time. So it comes in a box. You can easily do that program. And so we have to do a better job. And so I like to show you this here. And if you can't read it, let me just read it to you, because it says, I take aspirin for the headache caused by the Zyrtec. I take for the hay fever I got from Relenza. For the uneasy stomach I got from the Ritalin. I take for the short attention span caused by the Scopoderm. I take for the motion sickness I got from the Lomodal. And I take for the diarrhea caused by the Xenical. For the uncontrolled weight gain from the Paxil, I take for the anxiety from the Zocor. I take for my cholesterol, because exercise, a good diet, and regular, I don't care if it's chiropractic care or medical care, just is too much trouble. Hey, listen, people, it's time for us to take our heads out of the stand and put health back into healthcare. And so I thank you very much for being on the call. And